Changing Perspectives of the LGBTQIA+ Community by Nathan Orchard. The LGBTQIA+ community is a strong one that has thrived throughout the years. Recently, the community has been widely accepted throughout modern society and some accepted with open arms. This being said, there is still a lot of change that needs to be made. The fact that I can't even walk hand in hand with a partner without receiving abuse, or that people get attacked, even murdered for living their true selves, is heartbreaking. What hope do the young LGBTQIA+ community see when they look at the news? This is why I think it's so important to show positive representation of the community. This positive representation may even help shift perceptions of the community and reinforce that we are human and are not some second-rate citizens. We deserve to be happy. This is why I'm sharing my story, a rollercoaster of emotions not just for me, but my family, particularly my dad. Before I get into my story and present my own work, I wanted to further support that photography can be an amazing outlet and gateway for conversation and acceptance. John Berger describes it perfectly. Seeing comes before words. The child looks and recognizes before it can speak. Photography has the ability to leave an impression before people can. There is no opinion to persuade someone into thinking a certain way. Right and wrongs are taught, and we can use photography to express positivity and acceptance, which will hopefully leave a lasting impression. Furthermore, John Berger also said, the camera showed that the notion of time passing was inseparable from the experience of the visual. The camera forces us to see everything, and the haze of our opinions can finally be proven wrong. With a camera, we can prove that this community is just the same as everyone else. We can prove that not everyone's opinions are justified and that the media doesn't always have the best intentions. This is what media aims to do. Sometimes it's used as a weapon. In a visual lineage traceable to Christine Jorgensen, in the 1950s, trans aesthetics have forwarded trans as trans femme, who strive to replicate normative types of femininity. Media tends to only show one type of trans person, which could explain why there is much negativity to people who don't look or fit into society's views. Looking at the way trans femme has been represented in fashion outlets like Vogue, you can just see how stereotypical all the models look. Where is the inclusion? And where is the real representation? This is why it's so important to be your authentic self. The way media wants to portray trans femme people is to show that you must look exactly like a stereotypical cis woman. The fact that there is not a lot of inclusion gives a false look into trans lives. Photography can aid in the construction of and influence our identity. As a society, we are heavily influenced by the people who we inspire to be. We replicate their fashion sense and even pick up certain personality traits. So would it be so far-fetched to believe that an image could influence someone's opinion? Some would argue that every photograph is taken to have a specific narrative or context. A narrative is described as a story. Images are frequently used to illustrate a narrative. We need to be able to use photography to illustrate that we are a community and we are united. We are the norm. We are out there and not as fragile as certain stereotypes portray us to be. A narrative can be suggested by the artist. Photography is ever evolving, but some ideas that have surrounded the medium since its invention persists. For example, the capacity to manipulate images. Models can now be altered, producing an unrealistic body type. Words or text can be altered, creating a less authentic image. As a society, we are told to be nothing but perfect. This is particularly present within the LGBTQIA+ community. Some would argue that a narrative is too forceful and that art should be subjective. But in my own opinion, with certain sensitive subjects, like the LGBT representation, sometimes it is important to ensure that it is delivered in an appropriate and accurate way that cannot be spun to a completely different meaning. My own work has developed naturally throughout the year. I started by creating a set of images that showed my own journey of coming out. I showed 3 different aspects of this with 3 different titles. The first one being Road to Discovery, the second one being Internal Conflict, and lastly, Self-Pride. These are 3 titles that I feel are a natural progression that summarizes a majority of the LGBTQIA+ community's journeys. I wanted to further express this by developing self-portraits that highlighted how I can change my appearance to show how I am feeling within the gender spectrum. This is to further show that gender is fluid. Gender is not categorically male or female. Rather, gender is an ever-changing and infinitely changeable set of characteristics. I found that this quote sums up what I intend to show with these images perfectly. Characteristics can be used to further support how someone is feeling. I am using things like makeup and facial hair to further support the category that I may fit in into one given day. There is no limit to gender, and there is no one way of showing how someone can present from day to day, as it is fluid and ever-changing. This is what I intend to show using these 3 images. I tried to ensure these self-portraits had the gender identity as the main focus. Portraits are presented without judgment or stereotypes. By eliminating environmental influences with a stark white backdrop acts as a blank canvas. To ensure there was no distractions, I used a dramatic black backdrop that frames the face and hands of the images. This means that things like makeup and facial hair jumps out, as there is little to no other detail to show. The viewer is forced to realize and interpret the image themselves. This is contrasting to my last development of the project. I wanted to explore how my dad's perception has changed and what struggles he has had to overcome internally to accept me for who I am. The 2 images above are 2 contrasting images, one of me and my dad sat at a table having a conversation where he wasn't so accepting of me, and the second where we are standing proudly together. Starting off this work, I asked him a range of questions, and using these questions, I combined these in post-production with the images. I found that they allowed the viewer to understand and follow a narrative. To me, it's so important that this text is included, as it allows other LGBTQIA+ youth that situations change, and that just because someone doesn't understand at first, with time, it is possible for their perceptions to be changed. While presenting this in the exhibition, I've chosen to include 2 versions of these images. Shown on the walls, you will see the images without post-production, and then, through a digital version, you can see the process of the whole project, finishing with the typography edits of the images. This, to me, allows the viewer to guess the narrative and think about the work before they know the meaning, in hopes that this makes them appreciate and remember the work. I want to be able to tell a story with these images. This is why I think it's important that they were still shown in this exhibition. In one image, you can see a lot of harsh and hurtful words. These are some of the things that were said to me when I came out. I think it's important to show not only the good, but the bad, which is why I included these. I wanted to show that his opinion on the LGBTQIA+ community has changed and has improved massively. This is why I presented the positive images in such an inspiring and striking way. My dad has changed his views completely and is a lot more supportive and can finally call himself an ally of this community. The background in these images are very important. I wanted these images to have a homely feel. I made sure I could get as much detail as possible. At first, I didn't feel that my home was a safe space, which is why it's a lot more dark and gloomy. But over time, and with my dad's acceptance, this has changed. Which is why you'll notice a lot more vibrancy and light in the second image. The image showing positivity has a lot more family aspects. Past, present, and future is represented in this image, which again is why I feel it's so impactful. In a way, my whole family is represented in this image. The past being my nan and granddad, and the future being my cousin's birth scans, and the present being me and my dad. This is why I love this image so much, and why it's so impactful. Overall, I'm so happy with how this project has developed, and I know that my relationship with my dad is the best it's ever been. And this project is to celebrate that. He has changed, his perceptions and opinions can be altered with a bit of education and time. R. Smith also wrote that while the work continues to help and inspire others, it has also helped me grow as a photographer and a person. This citation is a definition of what I hope this piece of work becomes. I hope the young LGBTQIA community who may be struggling see this and realize that just because it's difficult now doesn't mean it always will be. There is always hope that a relationship, no matter how strained, can be salvaged and rebuilt. All that is needed is time and growth. This work has also allowed me to gain an understanding of why my dad had a particular outlook in life. His lack of education about the community had fueled a perception that was rife during the 70s to early 90s. Things like Section 28, which made it illegal for people to teach about LGBTQIA plus matters in school, would have limited his understanding and room for growth, therefore being stunted. I am so happy with how this project has enabled me and my dad to become closer, and our father-son bond has never been stronger because of this experience. I am able to celebrate a collaboration of minds and opinions, and if he was here right now, I would say thank you, Dad, for helping me create this piece. I'm so proud to call you my dad. Thank you for listening to this presentation and celebration of my dad's changed perceptions of the LGBTQIA community. I hope to continue this project further by creating more examples within the realm of changed perspectives within the community. So please feel free to follow my socials and keep up to date with all my work. Any queries, please don't hesitate to drop me a message. Once again, thank you.